Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Courtney Jones, and I'm a scientist at the Princess Margaret Cancer Center and a Leukemia Lymphoma Society Canada funded researcher. Welcome to my lab. So today we're going to do a lab tour. My lab studies a blood cancer called acute myeloid leukemia. It's the most common acute leukemia diagnosed in adults. And the 5-year survival rate is only 30%, which is very low. So we need to come up with new therapies to improve the outcomes of our patients. And while my lab really focuses on this one type of leukemia, we're really hopeful that the discoveries we make in acute myeloid leukemia are going to be relevant for blood cancers in general. So we're really hoping to have a big impact on all patients with blood cancers. So a typical day in the lab starts when we go over to the clinic and collect patient specimens or patient samples. And so Jacob Berman, my lab manager, has done this, and he's taken the samples back into the lab where he's starting to grow them in the lab so we can study their different biological properties. So once we collect the samples and have them growing, we then move over and start to do different assays or experiments like Christiana's doing over here. So Christiana O'Brien is a graduate student in the lab, and what she's doing is taking the different patient samples and using different drugs and trying to measure if the drugs are actually killing the samples. So what you're seeing her do is pipette the different patient samples into these 96-well plates, so we can actually assay or determine how the different drugs are killing different patient samples. So when we do these experiments, one thing we need to do is to check two different things. The first thing is to see if the drug is doing what we think it should be doing. And the second is to see if it's killing the leukemia cells. So to see if it's doing what we think it's supposed to be doing, to kind of interrogate that biology, we do a type of experiment called immunoblotting. And what immunoblotting allows us to do is measure specific molecules within the cells called proteins, and we expect our drugs to affect these proteins. And what Charlotte Ling, a graduate student in the lab, is doing is taking all of the proteins in our cells and loading them into this apparatus, which will separate them out and allow us to determine the effects of our drugs on the specific proteins. And once we've determined that our drug is doing what we expect it to be doing, that it's affecting the different proteins, we now need to see, did the drug actually kill the cells? So to do that, we do an experiment using a flow cytometer, which allows us to distinguish between the living cells and dead cells. And so Vincent, a postdoc in the lab, is going to be kind of demonstrating what that looks like. So what he's done is to take these drug-treated samples, and he loads them onto this machine, and then we'll collect individual cells. And the dead cells will have a different color to them, which this machine can detect. And what he's looking at here is whether the cells are alive or dead based off of the brightness of that color. And what he's seeing is that for this particular patient sample and this particular drug, we have some level of kill, but not 100%, which is telling us that we've made some progress into targeting these leukemic cells, but we still have more work to do. So I want to thank you for taking a tour of my lab and supporting the Leukemia Lymphoma Society of Canada. Your contributions make a real difference to our research and to the lives of patients with blood cancers. Thank you. I'm Dr. Courtney Jones, and I'm an LLSC-funded researcher at the Princess Margaret Cancer Center. And I want to sincerely thank you for supporting the LLSC. When you donate to them, it really helps us to do our research, and it helps in two different ways. One, the money goes to directly funding research projects with the goal of improving the lives of patients with blood cancer. But it also helps to fund our trainees and their development to become the future of blood cancer researchers. So by donating to the LLSC, you're helping both research today and ensuring that Canada has a strong blood cancer research community going forward. Thank you.